Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the showdown between myself and Enticity. So here we have Skaven versus Vampire Coast here in the first game. Should be quite a bit of fun. This used to be a matchup that I think many Skaven players did indeed dread, but with the new additions, more specifically for me, throughout the Unclean and having access to cheap cavalry units, or not cav, but harass units like wolf rats, it's really changed the matchup quite a bit in my opinion, and made it, and really I think, dead even. So we do have Throughout the Unclean as our lord. He's very, very good here. He can fight Luther Harkin. He can fight Count Noctilus. Summoning Rat Ogres is always a good thing. He can also heal your other monsters if you do have any. And Morskathar's Hellion, I think, is probably one of the big winners of the DLC overall. So it's the Mutant Rat Ogre ROR. Obviously, against single entities, that's where it really shines. You can see really good melee attack at 72. It does have a disrupt effect with the zap effect, and also just hits like an absolute truck. But what makes it really good is the warp discharge. This is crazy. So every, I believe, I don't know how often it goes off, but I guess every 15 seconds or whenever it's off cooldown, it basically does an AoE damage splash, which is just so damn good. So if it's surrounded by zombies, for example, or let's say it's fighting Luther Harkin while there's enemy support nearby, this bad boy is going to be doing AoE damage in conjunction with his very, very good DPS he has against SEs. Now, the rest of my army here is going to be Skaven Slaves, Skaven Slave Slingers in the back. These guys for 200 gold are an absolute steal. You can have them just sitting on top of big targets the whole game, and they'll pretty much always get their value back. And on top of that, against the gun bats, so deck dropper bats, things like that, these guys really, really perform. And that's going to be it. We do have the Ixos Triads here in the back with the Clan Rat Spears and a massive overload coming in with Death Runners. So I figure Death Runner is very weak to bombers. It's one of the worst situations if you get caught with bombers with these guys. But if you can flank and really get into the gun line, these guys can do some huge work. And I do like mixing them into my builds every now and then. So pretty much it, man. We do have a Plague Priest and an Assassin. Now, for Enticity, the dreaded king of the Vampire Coast, he's got Luther Harkin up in the sky. His front battle line is going to be Zombie Nation, 2 bombers. We have Sirens, Deck Gunners here in the back, more handguns, and a couple units of Scurvy Doggos to try and defend the back line. So certainly quite scary. Quite a bit of firepower coming from the Deck Gunners and bombers, but also not like a true super wide handgun build, which I think is smart. I think going super wide against Skaven with Vampire Coast might be hard now that they have like wolf rats and so many harass units and things like that. And also, a lot of Skaven players really like to swarm the Vampire Coast using the Clan Rats. So here, the Clan Vulcan Tail Slasher is going to be taking a bit of a pounding on the approach from the Shade Wraith Gunners. Nothing too bad, though. Might actually be able to break them. There is a discouraging effect, but so far, so good. And here, the Wolf Rats have kind of ferried out to the far side. I was hoping to get over-chased here by the Scurvy Dogs and 2v1 them, but Luther Harkin was nearby as well, so clearly that wasn't going to be the prettiest engagement. Now, down here in the front line, my Skaven Slaves do get absolutely Shadow Realms on the initial approach. I think just by maybe even did they even use any bombs? It looks like the Skaven Slaves might have just gotten flamethrowered there by the Gallows Giant. So pretty scary stuff. A Gunnery Mob Summon is going down here. Going to be screening out my troops as these Skaven Slaves do get in there, but we are able to get some doggos here. So the doggos, I thought those were my dogs. I was like, oh man, I don't remember that happening, but I suppose it did. Luther Harkin going for the kill. Classic Luther Harkin, just trying to snipe the enemy lords. He's really good at that, but I do have a new trick up my sleeve. So we use Creature Killer to fight back, and we also summon Rat Ogres behind Luther, which is going to make it very, very tough for him to escape. On top of that, you can see the Death Runners pulling back, just, paying a little bit of bait and switch there. And now my doggos are going to be running past these units and will be diving into the back line. So I leave one Wolf Rat to occupy the Scurvy Dogs, because I'm sure Enticity would have noticed a second later. And then the other Wolf Rats, due to the screening of this Scurvy Dog, are able to get in there and just massacre those Deck Gunners. So you can see the little Wolf Rats able to kill a Deck Gunner unit in a matter of like 5 or 10 seconds. Certainly some huge value. Deck Gunners cost about 800 or 700 in that range, so certainly a very, very good trade. Luther Harkin also got beat up pretty bad by Throt, and that's what I'm talking about. Like old Skaven lords, like Skrulk and those different characters, yeah, they're really good, but if they get charged by Luther, they're more or less going to be losing a ton of HP. They can't necessarily heal. It's going to be a very, very bad time. So we have all these Skaven Slave Slingers just kind of poking into the Gallows Giant here, and the Plague Priest is also here on foot, just dropping some summons and trying to cause some disruption to the back line. Bounce Bar is relatively even at this point, maybe a little bit in the favor of my Skaven considering the damage we did to Luther. And he was able to push back my Wolf Rats. However, with a little bit of maneuvering, I should be able to get past the zombies that have been assigned to guard duty here in the back. We do also have the Death Runners coming in, so I did leave them off on the side for quite some time, trying to wait for the Sirens and other units to get really involved in combat. But now is the time for the Death Runners, the Eshin Assassins, to come in and pressure into the gun line, maybe try and peel off some of the zombie bar deck end mobs. So Wolf Rats trying to get onto the Shade Wraith Gunners, and we have a pretty scary goon squad. You can see here that, not Noctilus, I was about to say Noctilus the Unclean. Throughout the Unclean, the Assassin and the Plague Priest were able to 3v1 the Gallows Giant. We do also have the Ixos Triads in here, and we do drop the clone right here just to give us some more mass in the battlefield. And now Luther Harkin is a little bit surrounded, while the Pebbles really start to sing here into the Gallows Giant. Some brave clan rats with spears. Getting flamethrowered, certainly fun, but we do get a full surround on the Shade Wraith Gunners, and Luther Harkin probably will get away here, but he's going to be taking a ton of damage in the process. Throt the Unclean is probably one of the hardest characters in the game to get away from. There goes the big boy. The Morse Guitar's Hellion doing some huge damage. Throt also applying poison, but it looks like Luther might be able to get some separation here as some of the Wolf Rats in the back do come back here. And there are the Wolf Rats with poison. Man, mobility for Skaven is just so damn good. And Luther is able to pull through these zombie pirate gunnery mobs. Very well played to Enticity there using the mass. And for anyone who's newer to the game, if you're trying to escape with like a flying unit like that, it's generally a very good idea to try and run through your own troops and pull them into you. But we'll see if Luther can get back up in the sky. It looks like he can. I think a little bit of a lapse in my micro right there. I was doing something else and assumed they would hold their attack order, but was able to juke me. But yeah, another shot right there, plus Throt coming in just so damn fast. Luther Harkin at negative 56 leadership. That boy is going to be going to Pound Town here. And yeah, only 10 HP per second. You know, Luther's he's a slippery one, but Throt should be able to get him here. And down he goes. The big Chungus Rat has feasted on Luther Harkin. A couple Sirens coming in. Obviously, I don't have a ton of magic damage, so we just dropped some summons there, and that is going to be GG. So well played. Certainly a fun game. I wasn't expecting Luther to take it that hard from Throt, but Throt, of course, has healing and also had a lot of support. As far as this build goes, I've actually made a couple modifications to it since what you guys have seen here. You know, I've played a lot of games. This happened like I think a week and a half ago. Throt is great. Assassin is great. Plague Priest, you know, they're all. It's really just for the trophy heads and someone to go after their casters and things like that. I did cut one Death Runner. I think two is a little bit excessive. You have plenty of flanking tools with the Wolf Rats. So I just like to have one in case they bring like a really cheeky depth guard unit or even a big crab and you want to sunder its armor by 50%. Because even if you're hitting a Leviathan that has like 120 armor, you know, 150, whatever the hell it is, it's going to cut that right in half, which is really good. So I like to have one Death Runner, but I think two is too much for how much they cost. I can't remember the other changes I made. I think I might have gone with a different hero or brought like a second Brood Horror or something, but there's all sorts of cool options and ways you can play this. Skaven can also play this with like a range style. You can bring mortars, you can bring slingers, you can go pretty crazy with it, which is fun. I do like the triads. It's nice to have like a sweeping anti-large unit that can really grind down big threats. So well played, guys. That was game one here in the series, and now we'll be going on over to game two, which was a really insane game between my Empire and his Dark Elves. We'll see you guys there in just a moment. All right, Sons of Sigmar, I hope you guys have your mustaches ready for this glorious Empire versus Dark Elf showdown. It's going to be Volkmar the Grim teaming up with some Knights of the Blazing Sun, some handgunners, flagellants, all sorts of good stuff. I'm really going for quite a bit of firepower, actually, with 2 handgunners plus 2 pistoliers, trying to lock down those high-value targets using the Light Wizard and some of that goodness. Now, you guys saw my army. Unbreakable front line is pretty much always nice, and, you know, flagellants and Sigmar Sons will trade pretty well with Dread Spears, right? It's going to be a favorable trade for you. Double handgunner in the back. Handgunners are a pretty good countermeasure against the Skirmishing Corps. So, for example, if he brings Dark Riders, who only have 115 range, the the handgunners with 145 can really range them and do some solid work. In the back, double Knights of the Blazing Sun, just one of my favorite cav units. They, you know, obviously pretty tanky, not quite as durable for their cost as the Empire Knights. Empire Knights do have 110 armor and cost quite a bit less, but you have much better damage. 40 melee attack, 42 weapon strength, and a charge bonus of 78, which is just way better than those Empire Knights. But Empire Knights serve a very different purpose. More of a roadblock unit, less of a DPS piece. So that's it for my army, and here in the front, my Pistoliers do try and get in there. I figured, hey, you know what, I'm going to be able to hit and run. The Pistoliers can shoot 360, but unfortunately, I miscalculated just a little bit, and those Pistoliers are going to be getting their bread buttered pretty damn bad. However, you know, we take down a couple models with us. So for Anticity's army, very classic stuff. Triple Dark Rider Repeater Crossbow. This is an excellent tool against Empire Heavy Cavalry, so Knights of the Blazing Sun, Demogryph Knights, all that stuff that you really often do see in this matchup. His front battle line is going to be Bleak Swords and Blackheart Corsairs, backed up by a Supreme Sorceress of Pendulum casting, which is really strong. Pendulum is really good against handgunners and state troopers. And then Enfeebling Foe, use that on the Demogryph Knights, Knights of the Blazing Sun, and that is how you prosper. We got a Master on a Velociraptor for some more anti-large and a massive core of cavalry. Triple Cold One Knights with the anti-large in conjunction with the Slaaneash's Harvesters. Very much like an old school Dark Elf build. Not using the Scourge Runner Chariots, which can be good here. Granted, Scourge Runners do often struggle against what was I going to say, like Empire Cannons and things like that, but I didn't decide to bring any this day. Sigmar's going in deep, man, trying to get those fights going. Volkmar the Grim should be pretty good here. The main threat to Volkmar, of course, is going to be the Dark Riders, and from here you can see my handgunners able to just rip one nice volley there. You can see even that does about 10% HP damage to those Dark Riders here, so from here the handgunners are going to be turning about face and shooting at the Blackheart Corsairs, which are armored, and I know it's not going to be a great trade for my Flagellants, so I'm like, alright, let's focus them down, and Volkmar does take a little bit of a tickling there from the quad Dark Riders, which, you know, at least he heals himself. And that's one of the cool things about having him, is you can bring characters like Light Wizards, and you don't have to be as reliant on Lore of Life. Pendulum coming in here on the silver bullets. I maybe could have dodged that a little bit better. At least we do dodge part of it, but we still take some massive damage there on the silver bullets. But not before we do break the Blackheart Corsairs, and Volkmar the Grim is going to be dropping a fat, chubby banishment right there, which does a pretty good damage. Definitely not terrible, although it does kind of go the wrong way. It would have been very nice if it had gone right down the formation. Out in the backfield, you can see the Occult Knights are coming in for a pretty aggressive play. The Pistoliers are trying their best to kite them, but unfortunately, a little bit of a lapse in micro there. He is able to catch me. So Knights of the Blazing Sun and Empire Knights are going to be dispatched in conjunction with some heavy handgunner fire. Handgunners are pretty exceptional against Cold One Knights. The Knights of the Blazing Sun do get a nice charge on these guys as well, and should be able to win that trade on the charge, especially considering that there's probably handgunner fire and other supporting elements that are going to be coming in. Now on the front line, we do have Flagellants dueling Dread Spears, Volkmar the Grim. I thought I could stay in combat against the Master with the Sigmar Suns helping, but it was kind of a foolish decision. And a net of Amnichok going down with the Dread Spears here, which was a little bit of a misclick. I was trying to click on the Colton Dread Knights, but I just, screwed up, and I paid the Troll Toll. My handgunners got caught, man. I'm getting it. So here on the far side, we do have a very messy fight. Cold One Knights and the Slaanesha's Harvesters teaming up here on the Empire Knights and Spearmen. And I felt relatively content staying here, considering I had Spearman support, but even still, he's probably just going to kill my Empire Knights and then pull back. So as far as the battle goes, it's pretty even at this point. My Empire Knights were able to dispatch those Cold One Knights, and from here they will be jumping over and just massacring those Dark Riders most likely. And the other Empire Knights do come in and get a nice counter charge there on the Cold One Knights that were in the main engagement, doing massive shock damage, and also capturing these Dark Riders. Getting rid of the mobility and the harass tools is going to be taking a ton of pressure off my handgunners, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. So the Dark Riders there get rode down nice and good like. Here in the back, we do have a couple handgunners, which are now back in business, which is great. So both those guys are going to be teeing off downtown into the Dark Riders, which, man, I got to get some buffering because they are doing so much damage against my cav. And Volkmar the Grim is certainly a very choice target. I guess I should just be grateful that Enticity does not have an net of any sort to lock down Volkmar. Handgunners, though, ripping into the Dark Riders, doing some good work. Sigmar Suns piling in, trying to stop that Master from getting on top of Volkmar. And here on the flank, we do have a pretty pitched cockfight. It's going to be the Knights of the Blazing Sun against the Cold One Knights, as well as the Harvesters, which really sucks. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun do a magic resist, which is very nice against the Slaanesha's Harvesters, and of course their armor. We have a little bit of Spearman support, but at the end of the day, I think my dudes are going to be losing that battle. But a very close fight nonetheless. A net of Amnichok is going to be going down right here, so we do lock down those Dark Riders. My idea was to lock them down and just kind of blast them with handguns, and also flank charge them here with the Sigmar Suns, and it seems to be paying off relatively well. We got some infantry on them. They're starting to take some heavy model casualties, but man, oh man, Volkmar has taken a righteous beating for the cost. Banishment going down once again on top of the Dark Riders. Doesn't do too much damage. Does take out a couple models there on the wing of things. And the Supreme Sorceress is doing some nice disruption here in the backfield, but the Knights of the Blazing Sun, coming back from their Holy Crusade, were able to charge in, and a little bit of time for my handgunners to get back, but Enticity still has a fair amount of mobility. He's got his Dark Riders here, and I only have so many cav units. Spears are okay at defending, but obviously at this point in the game, when it's very disconjointed, things are getting very crazy, it's going to be even harder. But I kind of figured that, even though I am behind in the balance of power, I felt like I could get back in this game and potentially take it if Volkmar the Grim could survive a little bit longer. So here is the Grand Shield of Faith, giving ward save to my Knights here. Handgunners are completely trapped up, but another very good situation for me is the fact that his Master is being surrounded by a bunch of cheap spears, and we're getting some nice good old prison shanks on this guy, and you can see his HP not going down super quick, but everything adds up, especially considering outside of Soul Stealer and a couple other mechanics, the Dark Elves do not really have the means of healing. So here, Volkmar the Grim is going to be running. Shield of Faith active, 600 HP, just trying my best to juke. You guys can see him kind of clicking back and forth, trying to minimize the damage I'm taking from all those units, but Volkmar does get a little bit separated from the pack here, and is going to be getting attacked by these Slaanesha's Harvesters and these Dark Riders, and all sorts of pressure. I still do have a pretty decent advantage in the infantry fight, actually, so a ton of Spearmen here with my Light Wizard, and also a couple Unbreakable troops, and the Soulfire Bombardment going down, wrecking these Slaanesha's Harvesters. Although I'm behind the Bounce of Power, guys, looking pretty scary. 191, 176, 170. It is getting so damn low. Spearmen doing everything they can. So I did also notice that he was almost out of ammo here, right? So no ammo left on these guys. I think 1 or 2 volleys. And these guys have more or less 1 volley between the whole bunch of them. And Volkmar the Grim is healing, man. And if he's able to heal up to like 1,000 HP, that could be very formidable. So I'm just trying to go through units where I can. Riding through these Bleak Swords, but here comes another volley. He's not the quickest dude. Volkmar only has 50 speed, so he's not the best at juking units. And a big old volley comes in there, very painful, doing about 400 damage. I thought my Knights of the Blazing Sun would interrupt them there. They do get the good charge, and here comes Volkmar charging in as we do break those units, and the Balance of Power does creep back towards the middle here in this insanely ferocious scrap. Sorceress of Shadows coming in as well. She's still a threat. I don't have too much stopping power to really just shut her down here. Volkmar does take another volley, unfortunately. She's down to 34 HP. You can see I was a little bit late in my juking. I was trying to micro a couple of units across the battlefield. Knights of the Blazing Sun going to be rushing in, trying to stop her, so they do press their way in, but man, oh man, there's just so much firepower coming in from the Druki. I do dodge a couple shots there, and the handgunners are back online, shooting into the Dark Riders. They're taking a bunch of damage, and the Spearmen of Sigmar are holding pretty firm. If only I had juked that other shot, Volkmar could have like 600 or 700 HP right now, but you can't have everything in life. Now Volkmar is going to be getting hunted. Here they come. Enfeebling foes active, and the Supreme Sorceress of Shadows is going to be coming in with the steel chair. And down goes Volkmar the Grim, destroyed by the Druki Lord. But even though the bounce of power is Druki favored, guys, there's still a lot going on here for the Sons of Sigmar. We do have 72 Spearmen here, 71 right there. We got a couple Flagellants and Sigmar Sun still fighting, as well as a Light Wizard. You can see the Blasting Scroll going down, able to hit that Master. He did partially kind of juke it. I think he was just moving, and it just happened to miss. But I should have waited for a head-on charge there. Would have done a little bit more damage. But honestly, this really isn't looking bad. I mean, he's almost out of ammo. Most of his troops are large. I mean, a Master is very low. Supreme Sorceress is a bit of a wet noodle in combat outside of finishing Volkmar, of course, which is her claim to fame, I'm sure. But the Black Art Corsairs are a bit of a problem. Black Art Corsairs are anti-infantry units and are quite exceptional against my type of troops. So I really got to form ranks here. So Spearmen trying to form ranks. They do get charged here by the Sorceress of Shadows, who's now going to be getting attacked by the Light Wizard, trying to get a rear charge on her. And the Light Wizard does make contact, doing quite a bit of damage. And the bounce of power, guys, is now dead even. Shit is about to get real here in this game. Light Wizard does drop an end of Ammonchok here on the Supreme Sorceress, locking her in amongst a bunch of spears. And at this point, both of us are like, all right, all hands on deck. Let's just mash our units in and see who can win the grind fight. And the Sons of Sigmar are coming back in the bounce of power. Just incredibly close right here, guys. And here comes more Spearmen moving in. The Dark Riders with repeater crossbows are pulling back. The Black Art Corsairs running for the hills as well. And the Supreme Sorceress is shaken, but certainly not stirred quite yet. The Light Wizard should be able to get a decent duel with that Master. We'll see. But man, that Sorceress is so low, and I know if I kill the Sorceress, the game is more or less over. I have enough spears, and without the Sorceress lending magic support, and potentially doing another Pendulum, I don't know what the situation is, I will be in good shape. But she is able to get away. Bounce of Power is still very close. Flagellants are now going to be getting charged by the Black Art Corsairs. Hopefully the Sons of Sigmar can kind of hold those guys off. And really trying to get the Master here. I can't quite connect, though, and the Master is doing some good work, and of course, my leadership is wavering, my troops are all exhausted, and the Dark Riders getting a nice rear charge there actually does break the leadership of a Spearman unit, which really wasn't in terrible shape. And oh my god, look how freaking low this Master is. One hit away from dying. The Supreme Sorceress is super low as well, but all my Spearmen are wavering for some reason. I guess being shot in the back and cycle charged is enough, despite having a bunch of them, and that is going to be where my army starts to fall apart. But look at this. The Master is broken. The entire Druki army is almost broken as well, with the exception of these Corsairs. And yeah, and the Lord, of course, but such a close, insanely scrappy game. And the Dark Riders probably, if they stay in combat, might die, but there's only one Flagellant left, I guess, and 7 Sigmar Sons. But from here, you can see my spears are going to be getting routed, and Enticity, of course, being a very savvy lad, is going to do his best to chase those guys down to make sure they don't come back. And that is going to be GG. Very well played. Such an incredibly scrappy game. It was just tense. It was back and forth. There was a lot of drama. But in the end, he was able to pull it out with the beautiful Dark Rider play, man. Very well played to him. So if we look at the scores, Volkmar might have done okay. He's still 1,000 gold. Knights of the Blazing Sun had some pretty effective trades, 1,000 and 1,500 respectively for their value, so can't really complain about that. And yeah, Pistoliers, that was probably my biggest failure, was the Pistoliers. Like, they shouldn't be taking damage like that. I just like slipped up on them. I got overconfident, took too much damage, and I think that may have cost me the game in the end. In games that are that close, it's like the little things. Also missing the net on the charging cavalry and clicking on the dread spears was pretty bad too, because it allowed him to get on top of my handgunners, which still did okay, mind you. But yeah, really well played. I've since kind of made some modifications to my build. You know, I feel like one cannon or a Hellblaster volley gun is often very, very good. Like going Hellblaster and then just bringing just the silver bullets, it's a little bit easier to protect, and the Hellblaster is really good against Dark Riders and things like that. But yeah, he would have had, I guess, Pendulum. Yeah, so Pendulum, yeah, no fireball, nothing to snipe the artillery. Volkmar, I still think is very good there. He's very tough to snipe, and usually Druki go very wide with a ton of infantry and things like that, so having him to clean that up is nice. But honestly, with 2 Knights of the Blazing Sun, I'm kind of thinking maybe going with like a Franz or a Boris type character would be even better. Just something to think about. You just got to be really careful, because he did a really good job maneuvering with those repeater crossbows. Look at the value, 1,200, 1,500, 1,600, and 1,200. Like, they probably got all the value, whereas like everything else, although Cold Moon Knights didn't do bad too. One of them did well. The Harvesters didn't do bad. Great game, man. Well played to him. And now we'll be going on to Game 3. Cheers, my friends. All right, guys, and now we're here with the rubber match, and what better way to close out this series than a mouth-breathing Wood Elf build? So it is going to be Orion Aerial Double Tree Man Winterheart Guard. Basically just this unbreakable monster blob. And you know what? I think it should be pretty good. Orion is certainly a raid boss. A lot of it is going to come down to who gets the better engagements in terms of the Lord duels and things like that. So hopefully you guys are ready. So like you saw, a double Glade Rider. We do have a couple spears, a double Tree Man, and Zoats. The Zoats are one that I was a little bit on the fence about, but getting an Earthblood or 2 free Earthbloods in a blob like this, I felt was pretty good, especially on the Tree Men. So we'll see how that works out. On the double Glade Riders, you pretty much have to bring those to shut down things like Mortis Engines and also just to give you a little bit of focus. Otherwise, the the counts are just going to surround you and pretty much you'll have no way to really dictate any terms in the fight. So we got 2 of those. His front line is Zombie Nation with Skeleton Warriors and Stearnsmen, and it's going to be Black Knight, as well as Blood Knights up in the sky. We do have a Von Karstein Vampire Lord, because one of the main ways to defeat the Vampire counts with Wood Elves is actually using air cheese. So you use the Spellsinger of High Magic, you cast Tempest, you have like Hawk Riders swarming. It's really, really annoying. So for the Vampire counts, having something like this up in the sky, which can help them contest the air with the Von Karstein Storm of the Night, I think is very strong. So yeah, pretty cool build for sure. I mean, it's wide enough to really pressure a ranged build or a kite build, and also has the tools to deal with single entities via the Terrorgeist as well as the Von Karstein Lord. So let's see how it goes. So here, the Glade Riders are going to be pulling back. Mel Gibson did drop a couple spears on top of that Mortis Engine, and you can see his Javelin quite good. Unfortunately, I do waste a shot right there trying to go into the Von Karstein Lord. And yeah, we're just going to kind of keep pumping and bumping and grinding right now, man. Trying to work down that Mortis Engine. So a fair amount of shots going in here. The Black Knights thinking about charging in, but the Zoats and the Spear Wall are ready, and one of the Black Knights there is picked off, which is quite nice. Orion able to pin one down. The Master of the Wild Hunt showing no mercy. Looks like a zombie summon's going to be going down from the Von Karstein Lord. We are able to kind of get away from it, but for the most part, Enticity does get a nice little catch. A couple of those units in the back are going to be getting caught and stuck on bats and zombies and things like that. So we kind of have to go marathon runner right now. We have to go around the map. Enticity probably going to be trying to chase down my Glade Riders. But the Mortis Engine getting very low, which is a really, really good start for me here. You can see another shot, bringing that Mortis Engine down so hard. I was kind of on the fence between bringing Durthu in this matchup or bringing Orion, but I think Orion, just because of the fact that he has that spear to kind of counter harass in the beginning, is very, very valuable for sure. So I think Enticity has really kind of foregone the main engagement just to try and hunt down my archers, which is a very good call, I think. I don't really have too much ranged poke outside of Orion, so he might as well just do everything he can to kind of corner and corral my Glade Riders, which are actually kiting relatively effectively back there, and then wait to engage the main army. Hawk's Talon coming down, able to get some beautiful value here on the Stearnsmen. Also hitting those zombies, and the Hounds and Mel Gibson are popped as well, just trying to clear through the chaff. And at this point I realized he was very committed to hunting down my archers in the back, which, at the very least are getting to use a lot of their ammunition, so I was quite happy about that. So I think in a moment I do pull the trigger, and I start to advance my main force. Mortis Engine is so low though, man. 2400, that thing is taking a righteous beating. Now he does have invocations and other ways to top it off, so even if you get the vampires down a little bit in the beginning, they can always bring that business back. So we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding here in this game, and you can see here we're going to be pushing up. We are on the hunt, and the Glade Riders are just kind of kiting in circles, running about. And I'm just trying to get freebies, trying to get zombies, trying to get skeletons. You see my Zoats and Orion have kind of pushed up here, and the rest of the army's kind of waddling after. And he is able to finally chase down one of my units there. So I do use one Glade Rider, but not before it did some decent damage to the Black Knights. And the other Glade Rider is somehow, some way, just like juking all of these units being hunted by the entire Vampire Count Legion. And the rest of my army is just kind of waddling here, and looks like we do get away. So we find open field again, and we're just going to, keep running, man, while the main force does engage now. So now the Blob Fight is officially underway. The Tree Men and Ariel getting ready to go. Orion does get a little bit isolated out in open field, separated from the pack here, but he's pretty durable, and even if Orion does take damage, it's really not that bad. He, of course, has the Cloak of Bishop, so really, when he gets low, he can take it like even more of a champ. So we do kill some zombies and chaff, but ultimately Enticity does come out a little bit ahead in that trade. Granted, we do respond with the Soul Stealer, so we hit a Terrorgeist, we hit the Von Karstein Lord, we also hit some skeletons and bats, so that Soul Stealer may have kind of counterbalanced the value we got there. So the Glade Riders are pulling back at this point, being chased down by Fellbats, and here you can see we got some huge damage here on the Black Knights, the double Tree Men doing some good work, and also the Tree Man here able to drop some big old branches and roots or whatever else you want to drop here on top of that Von Karstein Vampire Lord. So the Unbreakable Blob moves on. Tree Men have really high base leadership. Those guys are incredibly tough to break. The Mortis Engine is also pretty low, so I'm trying to find an opportunity to shoot here. And now you can see that the Glade Riders should be given an attack order to go after the Mortis Engine, try and wear that bad boy down, because I do have a fair amount of infantry. The Mortis Engine would be a problem. Zoats still holding on here. Orion once again attacked by the Von Karstein Vampire Lord, but he does get some good damage, but not before Blood Knights charge in. Now, this is a little bit ugly. I do have my Zoats here, and the Blood Knights are quite good against these guys. Ugly for me, because the Blood Knights almost got a good charge on my Zoats, which if Zoats get isolated by Blood Knights in open field, you're going to be getting your bread buttered pretty bad. Zotes will get wrecked super hard by such attacks. Not if you have Flesh to Stone on, but you only have so many charges of that. So the Acorn of Ages going down there does nuke those Blood Knights. Able to take out a couple models. Definitely a very solid item. And one Treeman kind of standing idle right now. I'm not really sure what he's up to. Looks like he's just roaring angrily at the sky. I know how that feels, man. I've been there. And Ariel is buffed up by the Flesh to Stone, trying to keep her from taking some damage from the charging Von Karstein Vampire Lord, which again doesn't have the best AP. So the extra armor on the Elven Demigod is going to help quite a bit, putting her up to 90, man. So Balance of Power is pretty close at this point. The Glade Riders are just kind of kiting back and occupying the Black Knights as well as some Fellbats. And the Mortis Engine is very low. It hasn't really gotten engaged. It looks like the Mortis Engine does want to get in here and fight now. And Orion obviously doesn't heal himself unless he's at a certain point. So he hasn't got to that point yet. And we do get a Soul Stealer. It does actually hit the Mortis Engine. It hits the Goose. So I was quite happy about that. Able to get this thing low. And I felt like if we could kill that, we still have a ton of Eternal Guard. And even if Orion looks low, finishing him off with, a Von Karstein Vampire Lord isn't going to be super easy. But a little bit of a mistake on my part. A huge one, actually. These Zotes do overextend a little bit and get countercharged by Anticity's Cavalry. And I do respond by pushing up my Treemen and Spears, trying to support, but losing the Zotes there really, really does hurt. And will certainly make me pay a bit of a toll, because keeping them on top of Spears is a very safe play. They're able to fight back against the Blood Knights with proper support, but in this case, it's not going to be pretty. So the Mortis Engine is able to escape. It is reaching its healing cap. Of course, the Mortis Engine does periodically heal itself, so that thing is relatively self-sufficient. And here, Enticity is going to be pulling ahead here in this match, and a big old breath attack coming down there, able to go on top of the Eternal Guard. And here comes another charge. The Vampire Count Goon Squad once again going onto Orion with the Berry Wine, healing him up and also restoring his vigor. So Orion is going to be mighty fresh after sipping some of that Jesus juice there. And he's holding on, man. He's certainly holding on. Von Karstein Vampire Lord has popped the Charmed Shield, I believe, giving him Ward Save in conjunction with the Undeath Resurgent. And some of my characters have been forced out of the Blob. Granted, my Blob is getting a little bit thin. Hawk's Talon coming down once again. It should do some good damage against Sternsman, but it looks like Enticity is going to be able to dodge that. Very well played. I don't think we even killed a single model with that. And I think this is my third and final Soul Stealer, which he was able to dodge it with a lot of stuff. We do get the Mortis Engine once again, which is certainly super valuable, and we also I think hit the Sternsman, can't quite tell. Honestly, not the best one. In retrospect, I probably should have held that Soul Stealer back and really waited till the final moments of the game to cast it. It does pull the Balance of Power back, though. And another Hounds of Mel Gibson there, able to go down onto the Skeletons, getting some amazing value. And the Winterheart Guard are still fighting, 22 models. Both Treemen are in perfect health. Orion's in perfect health. I mean, though the Balance of Power is looking okay for the Vampire Counts, I do think it's still a very, very even game. And the Mortis Engine isn't going to really do a whole lot against my army as it is. Everything I have here has insane leadership or is close to unbreakable, or is unbreakable. So the Mortis Engine might drain down the Winterheart Guard and things like that, but I don't think it's going to be too punishing. So here the Treemen are going to be going for the blow, though. Obviously, the Mortis Engine is still an easy target, so I do want to take it down to try and give the Balance of Power a little bit of breathing room. And I tried to charge in my Glade Riders here at the last second, but the Blood Knights were able to intercept, and also my Zotes who were coming back. If I could have gotten them back in the Blob, I would have been very, very happy here, but at this point, I realize the Zotes are probably done for, so what I'm going to do is run them as far away as I can from this battle to try and keep the Blood Knights a little bit further away, but he does catch me, and I just have to turn and fight, basically. So Orion getting some spears here on the Mortis Engine. This bad boy is crumbling now, which is nice, so it will probably crumble to its demise, being at its healing cap, and the two Treemen still just stomping the yard in conjunction with Ariel. And it looks like Orion finally able to get some duels back against the Von Karstein Vampire Lord. With Undeath Resurgent, obviously he's in relatively good shape in terms of melee defense and leadership, so he's not going to be crumbling anytime soon. And the Mortis Engine is very, very low, man. Just trying to get it. Some brave Eternal Guard are out there, and it's at negative 41 or at 41 HP. Should be going down here in just a second. 15, 6, and down goes the engine. Balance of Power is somewhat even here. Very, very close game. Big problem for me, though, is the Blood Knights. Now that I'm out of spear support and different things like that, the Acorn of the Age is doing some fat damage there against those guys. Probably should have saved it for the Blood Knights, but at this point, a lot of it was just knee-jerk reactions, reacting to these attacks and trying to micro as effectively as I can, because he's really, really cycle charging quite well. And that really, if you want to be a good Vampire Count player, one of the first things you need to manage is effective cycle charging. I think they are probably one of the factions that rely on it the most heavily, considering how dependent they can be on both, Blood Knight charges as well as Terrorgeist and Vampire Lord charges and things like that. Because you're mainly mucking up people's armies, right? Using things like zombies and skeletons, skeleton summons, zombie summons, and then from there you're cycle charging and getting some good value. So here it's going pretty good. I mean, we got two Treemen. They are exhausted, and of course fatigue does affect armor value. So now he's going to be going for the low-hanging fairy, getting his Goose as well as his Von Karstein Vampire Lord to attack Ariel. And I don't really have much in the way of healing. Granted, we are able to slap up these Black Knights who appear to be going down. Ariel is unbreakable, so, she's going to be able to take it. Not like she's going to get routed and broken. I do think that the unbreakable blob can be very, very good here. Granted, the Blood Knights are nearby. They're very much like jackals or vultures waiting on the wings, trying to find a chink in my armor, which is much easier now. Now that I don't have spear support or any ground support, I, pretty much open to all kinds of damage here. So the Sternsmen are in weak binding here. The trees are stomping the yard. Here comes the Terrorgeist charging in, going after Orion. And that was my moment that I thought I was going to win the game. I casted Tempest, but Tempest actually doesn't do damage if the target lands on the ground. So I'm basically missing out on like 1,000 damage here. So I really, really got screwed right there. If that Tempest had gone off like a second earlier, if I had been a little bit more on point with that, the Von Karstein Vampire Lord could be very, very low right now, and this could be a very different game. But instead, he got a really good charge and was able to come in and finish off Orion. So Hawk's Talon going down. Tree Men still fighting the good fight. The Blood Knights are getting quite damaged, only 20 models, and Mel Gibson is now healing. But a big goose attack. He was able to do some splash damage against Orion. Actually, very, very nice stuff. And a couple of spears of mine do come back, but not before getting broken. The Blood Knights are down to 19 models. Van Hell's Dance Kebab is going down, putting him up to 65 melee attack, but those boys are pulling back right now. And I am falling behind the bounce of power. But if you're Wood Elves and you're using Orion, you don't want to give up when this happens, because it pretty much always happens more or less. And this is where you like win the game, right? Is when he just survives this with his like 66% ward save. So Blood Knight's committing very heavily. Treatment are steady. Ariel, man, would really, really love to have a Soul Stealer right now. Holy shit, that would be huge. But nonetheless, Orion might be going down here. It's a little bit hard to say. It looks like his health is kind of stabilizing. Can't quite tell. No, he's at about 142, and the Von Karstein Lord has fallen back, and Orion has fallen. And suddenly, we are certainly in dire straits as Ariel, the Queen of the Forest here, is in a little bit of trouble. Cycle charging should be quite strong. He still has a fair amount of zombie chaff here on the ground. I believe these are summons, which will be disappearing soon. Blood Knights still have 19 models too, and Blood Knights, now that the treatment are exhausted, are going to be much more efficient, right? A lot of people actually don't know that, but fatigue affects all sorts of stats and different variables that you wouldn't expect. Excuse me. Man, I just had some delicious dinner, and I'm feeling it now. Von Karstein Vampire Lord charged in. Here comes the Terror Goose of the Gods rear charging into the treatment here. And it looks like that's probably going to be all she wrote for my Wood Elves. Granted, the Blood Knights, not taking too many casualties. 19 models there. Invocation of Nehek healing those bad boys up. Now they're going to be pulling back and getting ready to cycle charge here. And Ariel is pretty much out of magic at this point. That Tempest was an overcast, and it was pretty much my last gambit to try and nuke the Von Karstein Vampire Lord up in the sky, which probably would have saved Orion's life. But in this case, he was able to get down to the ground fast enough, and now I'm paying the ultimate price as well. So we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding here, as it can be very grindy. I have a lot of unbreakable troops, but the cycle charging is going to be very strong as he still has ample troops on the ground. And again, if you're playing vampire counts, you really, really do want to master cycle charging. It's very, very important here, because if you sit in combat, you're going to get punished by such units, right? Here they come. Bounce of Power is getting danger close to army losses. Ariel is the only thing fighting. And I think I got like one Apotheosis off at the end, and that was it. So what a crazy game, man. And that build was fun. I've since come up with something that's quite interesting. I'll show you guys after this, but very well played to Enticity. So he will be taking that series there, and it was a super close, fun one. All the games are really solid. The Empire Dark Elf game could have gone either way. This one could have gone either way. It was just so good. And really made for some fun action. But look at the goddamn value. 5,200, 3,000 here. The treatment, of course, 1,800 and 1,400. The Zotes were definitely the weak link. If you're going to go for like an unbreakable blob, I should have cut the Zotes and got like 2 tree men or something. That would have given me a ton of buffering against his charging and also something to tie him up with. So the Zotes were a mistake, but I learned it from this. And that's one of the great things about playing these games and just, these really heated cockfights and getting to realize what works and what doesn't. And his build was great. He played great. It was just solid performance, really good cycle charging, really good micro. It was beautiful. And if you guys haven't seen Enticity, he's over on Twitch and I believe YouTube as well. So I'll check his platforms and link you guys down in the section below. He does all sorts of campaign speedruns. He's obviously probably one of the best multiplayer players in the entire community. I think he won Aerocrossic Salad Cup recently. Looking forward to seeing Enticity in future competitions. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Very well played. And let's go ahead and update the scoreboard just for the official status there. Sometimes I forget to do it as these replays do end. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. And now let's go ahead and jump on over and take a look at the adjustments I've made to my builds. So if we are looking at the, that is my anti-dwarf chaos build. If we're looking at Wood Elves, so I've come up with 2. One of them is, of course, Wood Elves versus, where is it? Wood Elves versus Counts. Wood Elves versus Counts. Somewhere here. Wood Elves versus Scary Vampires. Okay, so Wood Elves versus Counts. This is one I've done. So basically, you get the Sisters of Twilight up on their dragon, and you get Ariel on the ground for Tempest. So you can defeat the Vampire Air Force very easily with the Tempest and Berry Wine with your dragon, plus the Sisters fighting and triple Hawk Rider supporting, and then you just like tank on the ground with Ariel in the trees while your Air Force dominates, and then from there you just shoot them from the skies and cackle, and it's usually pretty effective. That's one way I've been going about it and have had some success. The other one, I could have sworn I have another one. Yeah, Wood Elves versus Vampire Counts Anti-Air. This one is using a Spell Singer of High Magic, using Tempest with double Blade Singer on the ground with the Lost Sylvan Knights, and then it's more or less a similar principle to what you just saw. And of course, the modified variant of what I just used should be down here. Yeah, there you go. So you get a Glade Captain instead of the Zotes, and an extra Skirmisher, which gives you more poke and more kiting, and then also the Glade Captain gives really nice AoE auras, including 5 melee defense and 5 melee attack to your whole blob. So they both work. This also gives you more ranged, so you can just sit and shoot them while they're up in the sky, which is really, really nice. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, plus the post-game builds. Well played to Enticity. I'm going to be continuing the best of 5 series. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty regular thing here on the channel. I want to give, I post a lot of games that come from my tournament games and best of 5s and things like that as single games, but I think it's really interesting to see the dynamics and the back and forth of these series, and see how players adjust to these circumstances. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this one, and we will see you back on the other side. You guys take care.